Tonight on Strange Days Live, scary, creepy stories about Ouija boards and completely mysterious vanishing. Join us, will you? Hey guys. It's another episode of Strange Days Live. I'm your host, Doc, on this Monday, March 4th, 2004. I'm doing great, folks. 2024. I was going to say 14. My goodness, what's wrong with me? Tonight, we have some good show material for you guys. We have scary Ouija board stories and complete mysterious vanishings. I hope you guys join us for the whole entire show. I chose to show my face, and here I am. How are you guys? Haven't seen me for a while, huh? Welcome our guest, Rafa. Welcome to have you on the show. I encourage you guys to join us. For those who are watching live, you know what to do. Call the number 951-888-0313 or simply click on the link that's going to be posted right now. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I had a great weekend. Listened to a lot of Art Bell. Got some new ideas for the show. And we're going to get going. Horsehair, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. Got the regulars coming in. If you guys want to call in a little bit, once I get the stories going, then you're welcome. Join us. And here we go. I've never been very keen on the Ouija board. In fact, I've never used it myself. I've always been too, I don't want to say the word afraid, but I've been neglecting using a tool that can potentially connect you to evil, as I tend to walk in the light more than I do go after anything that's evil. I've heard many bad stories about the Ouija board, and I've heard a lot of people that come out of an experience not being the same or dragging something into their lives that they did not want to be dragged into their lives. Have you guys used it before? Do you have any experiences you'd like to share while we're on live? Go ahead and do so. Type in your comment section and we can go through them in a little bit. For those of you that are new to the show, welcome. I encourage you to join our Facebook profile here at Strange Days Paranormal and follow us. We have a bunch of platforms that are available for you. Visit our site, Strange Days Live. You can have all the connection you need there. I also have a Reddit account under Strange Days Live, if you guys are Reddit users. And I am on about 50 podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it, we're there. The only caveat is that we're under Strange Days Paranormal on the podcast section. Everything else in social media will be Strange Days Live. And without further ado, we'll get the show started. Thank you for joining us. Ouija board story, untitled. I'm going to read these stories. I tend not to read these before because I want to get a live reaction of myself reacting to the story. Some of the stories, because they're not read before, may not be that fun, but some of them maybe. That's what you get with a live show. So the first story is called the Ouija board story. It was posted 4 years ago. So I never had a Ouija board experience, says the user who posted it, because I always was told not to play with them. But recently I was at the mall looking for a game called What Do You Mean? I'm sure you guys are familiar with that game. As I was looking at the games right next to them were Ouija boards. Anyways, the worker comes up to me and says, "Hey, you want a Ouija board? I'll give you 50% off." And I was like, no thanks, I'm good. I'm looking for a Ouija board. I'm not looking for a Ouija board. And then the lady walks away. I thought it was weird because I was clearly looking at the What Do You Mean games. And to top it all off, Ouija boards were like $30 and I didn't have any money. And they didn't have any 50% sign off. And I told my family about it, and a few of them said that, what was the devil trying to lure me into? It's weird because I thought it was worth sharing. I like to hear stories like that. So basic story, this kid goes in looking for a particular type of game, and out of Out of nowhere comes a worker that tells him, hey, get a Ouija board instead, and I'll give you 30% off, or 50% off. Long story short, he declined. The person seems to have disappeared, and there was no 50% off attached to the Ouija board. Is that weird? Yeah, it's pretty odd that somebody would offer something that they don't have just because they want to maybe get him into some kind of experience. Now, this is called Kurt, our next story. I have so many stories, I'm not sure where to begin, says poster S. Mixer. This was also posted 4 years ago. Let's go with Kurt Cobain. I was 15 when I began experimenting with the Ouija board. I didn't really know anything about the dark side of it, as my grandmother played with it when I was very young. The board game my grandma chose me to play was supposedly my great-grandmother's. Her mother and I were told that our great-grandmother was very intrigued by the supernatural. And so the Ouija board was very familiar, if you will, an object that everybody in our family had used. Anyway, the board had significance to me due to this particular thing that it had belonged to my great-grandmother. And thus I heard it in high regard. As I was the only relic from my ancestry, I began innocently enough. As I always play with friends, we joked about playing, asking all the mundane questions. After about 20 questions answered correctly with no way of the other person playing, I was hooked. I had a magnetic connection to the board, to be honest. Never felt a connection like that since, actually. Soon, I found myself drawn to playing it constantly. Once out of school, I wanted to play it. I realized none of my friends were interested. And I was into this thing. So yeah, despite all the warnings that I've heard before, I played by myself. This would be the beginning of my curse, I do believe. I would play hooky so I can play the entire school day. I couldn't put the game down. I spoke to Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, several past classmates, and the most prominent was Kurt Cobain. He died while my obsession was spawning, so naturally, being a fan, I couldn't wait to reach him. I remember trying a few times before it felt authentic, but eventually it was, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. He told me to get the word out about his murder. He told me that somehow, to get his wife investigated, he was pleading. I would get lost in a trance-like state and realize 4 to 5 hours would go by without even me noticing or stopping. He told me some pretty amazing stuff that I can't really remember today, but know that they were profound enough for me to tell everyone. And I do mean everyone. He told me that Courtney actually deleted him and staged his death. I'd go on about what a nasty person she was and that she needed to be arrested. I still, to this day, do not understand how she got away from it all. It really does not make sense. This actually forced me to realize a few things quite early in life. I had a couple of people that said they believed me, but no one really did. My parents didn't, and it really drove me nuts. I started doing some crazy teenage angst things and morbidly wore a picture safety pin to my clothes of Kurt Cobain every day. Living in my hometown where I went to school, I never knew my actions as a 15-year-old will still be brought up today. But whatever. The point is, things were happening. In the rare event that I did want to go to sleep, I couldn't. I must have been a month without sleep after his death. I saw things I cannot explain. It wasn't him that was doing these odd things, though. I could tell. It was something far more sinister. Things would fly off the wall, candles would go out, brand new CDs would skip. I would hear things, see figures standing over me when I would try to sleep. It was pretty traumatic, to say the least. Now, Kurt would always have a sunny disposition. The other spirits I spoke with did not. I think I opened up a whole dimension of demonic beings when I began playing. My obsession lasted about 1.5 years, all the while the board being my main focus. I remember speaking to Kurt one night before my parents got home, and something new in the media about his case. Not sure what it was, but it was prevalent. I was downstairs and I saw the same picture of Kurt I always pinned on my shirt. Actually, now it was on the TV. My mom and dad saw it. My dad still doesn't talk about it, but my mom still gets freaked out every time she hears his name. Here's a kicker. This TV was not on and was unplugged. I just calmly walked by and my mom stopped me, screamed my name and asked if I saw it. I replied, yes, and I think it was just so common at this point that I didn't really give a second glance until she startled me by pointing it out. I have several more chilling stories, but this is instilled in my mind. Kurt never rested about getting his story to be heard and told me unless she left some evidence behind, everyone was just going to close him away. once dead and gone. I reminded and reassured him this would never happen. I would always seek the truth and continue to make waves and let the proper authorities know so Courtney could face justice. I'm happy to say that over 20 years later, there is evidence of Courtney's intent. I am not entirely sure of the investigation status currently, but I know that some details recently have been brought up for light. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know if I buy the whole story, but interesting. Never mind. Nevertheless, correct. Another Ouija board experience. One night, me and my coworkers decided to play with the Ouija board outside of work. We talked to a girl named Quinn, who said that she was a demon. She seemed pretty cool. Till towards the end of talking to her, we decided we needed to head home because it was like 2 in the morning. But she wouldn't let us say goodbye until we promised that if we ever use the Ouija board again, that we would talk to her. About a week later, the place where we work caught on fire. So a few days after that, we went to the lake and used the board again and asked for Quinn. When asked if she started the fire, she told us that she did. Then it seemed like Quinn got scared or overpowered because the board started acting up, spelled different words, and started counting backwards. We quickly said our goodbyes and moved the plaquette to goodbye. About 2 weeks later, I was driving to my friend's house. I should mention that the friend was a girl I was seeing at the time, and she was cheating on using me. Side note. I did not know this at the time. I guess Quinn knew because she seemed mad, protecting, and jealous when me and my friends mentioned this girl's name. The first time we used the Ouija board. So on the way to her house, I hydroplaned and flipped my truck. I had to add the Ouija board was in the truck at that time. Some people driving down the road stopped to help get the door open, and I climbed up and out. When the cops arrived, they made sure I was okay. Instead, they had to write me a ticket just because of the accident. I don't have a ticket anymore because it happened 4 years ago, but the address site on the accident was Route 666, Virginia. Next story is called Not Just a Game. So I played this quote-unquote game years ago when I was about 14 years old. My best friend at the time, Melissa, and I decided to play the board. We lit some candles and proceeded to play. We put our fingers lightly on the plaquette and asked, "Is somebody there?" It replied, "Yes." When then asked, "What is your name?" It replied, "Gina." When we asked, "What do you want?" it started to write CHE, then slowly made its way to L. At this point, I noticed I was starting to spell out my name. From the L to the planchette began to move towards the S. I threw my hands up and started to cry. I 110% trusted Melissa. This girl was my best friend, my ride or die. But I was so scared at this point that I asked Melissa, "Did you move it?" She promised me she wasn't moving it. I believed her, and I still believe her to this day. So after I called my mom is super religious. She calmed me down and said a prayer. My mom then said my sister wanted to talk to me. So I get on the phone with my sister, and she heard me talking to my mom and wanted to talk to me about her experience with playing, quote unquote, the game. My sister then began to tell me how she was always contacted by Gina when she played years before me. My sister then asked if I had talked to my older sister yet about this, and I had not. She told me to call my oldest sister and to talk to her about this. So I did. My oldest sister had played this game before both of us, and my other sister had played as well. She too was contacted by a little girl named Gina. However, my older sister actually stayed and talked to Gina when she played this game. My sister then told me how Gina had passed away. Gina had a very similar childhood to my sisters and I won't go into details about hers or our childhood, but it wasn't the best. The fact that my sisters and I all played the game on different occasions, all with different people, and were contacted by the same person makes me know that this is not just a game. Since that day, I have never and will never play the Ouija board. I know that it is made by Milton Bradley and that they are a game company. However, in my experience, the Ouija board is not a game. It is not something to be played with. And if you are reading this and have not touched the Ouija, don't. Please, do yourself a favor and don't. Go back here to the studio, put the music a little bit below. Hey guys, how are you? There's one comment here. What's up, dog? Joe Breezy, my old friend, is here. How you doing, Joe? Good to have you on the show, my brother. Miss you. So yeah, I've never engaged in any sort of Ouija board, and I never intend to do that. Like I said, it opens up gateways and it opens up avenues for some serious, crazy, evil, fill in the blank stuff, and I'm just not into that. There's nothing really to gain if you think about it. All you're going to do is you're going to open up an avenue, you're going to open up a portal, and you're going to get answers to questions that you personally wrote. No. So what is the point? Invitation from a demon? You know? Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing this at all. So another story here was posted 6 years ago under Ouija board stories, and this is titled "My First and Only Time Using a Ouija Board." Hello, I want to give you guys my backstory about the first time that I ever played with the board. It was a long time ago, about 5 to 6 years ago, and it was a moment that I did not know what to do with my life. So me and a friend decided to leave our jobs and family, catch a plane to London, and try to figure out what to do next. It seemed ballsy, but I had some friends living there, and I asked them if I could stay there with my friends. And a few days later, I found a job and a room to stay. They approved, and all was fine. The house was really small and old. We were 7 guys. We were 7 people, 1 guy, me, and 6 girls. I got a job at a pub and found a room in a week later from there. But every night I would join my friends at night so we can do something. One night, we decided to play the Ouija board. One of the girls had a high level of Reiki, and she said that she had an open box, whatever that means. So she's the one that opened up the board. Note that I would never believe in this. My parents are really religious, and they always said to me that I should never play this game. But since I am not religious myself, or I believe that this Ouija board I wanted to try, I came back from work that day and everything was ready to start playing. We had a lot of candles. The place was set, the place was dark, and my Reiki friend did a bubble spell. I said that it would protect us. In the beginning, the glass did nothing, and I was super confident that everything was BS. But then it started to move. We asked the name, and for what I remember, it was a little girl at first. And this time, I was super sure that it was one of my friends. The little girl said that she was killed in the appropriate house that we were at. She had a brother that was killed there as well. We asked how, but she did not reply, and the glass did not move. Still, at this time, I was super confident that all this was a joke, and I said to the girls that we should end the game because the glass did not move for a while. Then, it moved again when my friend asked if anybody was there. My friend asked the name. For my surprise, it was the name Augusto, the name of my grandparent that is dead. No one knew in the room this, since I was very close to him and I was a child. I did not say anything, and they asked a bunch of random questions to him, and he answered saying he was fine and I needed to leave. Then the glass started to spin a lot randomly, and we got scared. We did not end the game in a correct way. We just packed the stuff and did not break the glass. This was sure a mistake. The next day at work, I only heard someone calling me by my name without an English accent. Perfect Portuguese accent. And this creeped me out a bit because I sure it was in my mind. That night when I came home, my friend was telling others that she listened to somebody calling her all day. I was shocked. I told them what happened, and in the night we listened to kids crying, but we were sure that the neighbors did not have any kids. The next day I woke up late and one of the girls found a photo, black and white, of a woman carrying 2 kids. Since that day I was super paranoid. The picture that I had in my house, when I looked, it seemed like a figure would never leave the picture. Weird stuff would happen, like feelings that somebody was following me in the streets. When I was sure that I was alone, we decided to break the glass in full desperation. We said it was enough when one of the girls got her arm scratched with 3 cuts. I decided to leave London 1 month later, and everything went back to normal, except once when I was talking with my friends over TeamSpeaks. It was a kind of Skype type program, and I was telling him this story, and they started to listen to some weird noises over my headset microphone. I happened to be alone at home that night. They said it seemed like a rusty swing for children. I was super scared because I was home alone. I met a friend some months later, and she said that she was a witch, and I researched that these people are really almost like a religion. I said to my story, and she told me a few questions. She asked me a few questions. I remember she asked me if I was always tired, and I remember that I'm always tired, but that can be because of poor diet or something like that. But then she asked me if I was really unlucky. Not unlucky in big things, like really simple aspects, like dropping everything on my hands, forgetting stuff easily, like the keys at home, or even strange unlucky things happening. And when she said that, I Understood. I never talked with her, no more of my life experiences, and now my life is pretty good. I still get tired and unlucky, but overall, I am never had more paranormal experience, and I would never play the Ouija board again. Hey Joe, let's go back here to the callers. Question of the day is if you guys ever play with Ouija boards. Have you? I said again, I have not. And if you have played with this thing, go ahead and give us a report or just kind of write in the comments what your personal experience was. Going back to the comment section, my friend Joe Breezy writes, I'm good. Just got done with the Cult Classic Film Convention, 4 days of partying a lot, but I had it all day to recover. I'm glad you did, man. Four for one. 4 days of partying, 1 day of recovery. I don't know if that's enough for our age, man. I think it should be the other way around. 1 day of partying and 4 days of recovery, right? At least it feels like that for me, man. But anyway, so yeah, that was some crazy Ouija board stories. I'm going to switch things up a bit now. This is a story about unsolved mysteries, or quote unquote unresolved mysteries. And this is in regards to a very, very weird vanishing. There's different stories here, so we'll just take one at a time. I've always been intrigued by vanishings, because they some of them do not fit our narrative for what a simple vanishing would be. Often there's a lot of clues missing. Often there's a lot of things that makes us think twice if the person has been abducted as opposed to just walked out somewhere on their own. And there's always a component of paranormal or freaky situations, if you will. It's never very clean cut, so that's why it's very intriguing and very unusual, and I enjoy these vanishing tales. This is the introduction. When someone disappears mysteriously, those left behind are often shocked and confused. Particularly baffling are disappearances where it appears as if the missing person suddenly vanished in the midst of their daily activities. When somebody disappears in the middle of making something to eat, the effect can be particularly jarring. The table is set, but no one is there. In this write-up, I will explore the disappearances of 5 people who went missing while cooking, believe it or not. Although the clues left behind and the exact circumstances of each of these cases vary, all of them share the same sense of eerie abruptness. I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts on these cases as well as any other similar cases that you may know of. This was posted a year ago. First case is that of Stephanie Stewart. In the summer of 2006, Stephanie Stewart, 70, worked as a fire spotter for Alberta, Canada's Sustainable Resource Development Department. Fire spotters are also known as lookout observers. During the wildfire season, generally April to September, although it could vary, fire spotters live full-time in cabins located next to observation towers and lookout points. Their primary priority is to monitor for any sort of signs of wildfires, particularly, obviously, smoke. Other duties include reporting local weather conditions several times per day, monitoring and recording radio relay transmissions from other nearby workers, and maintaining all buildings and outbuildings on the property. The job is known for being very physical and mentally taxing, as well as isolating. Many lookout towers are in incredibly remote areas, some requiring workers as well as food and other supplies to be transported to the site via helicopter. Stewart was an accomplished outdoorswoman who had previously climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and bicycled across Canada solo. She was also an experienced fire spotter with 18 years prior experience in this position. During the summer of 2006, Stewart was stationed at the remote Athabasca Lookout Tower. 12 of Stewart's 18 years working as a fire spotter had been at Athabasca Lookout. She spent her downtime in the lookout gardening, painting, embroidering, and reading. On the day of August 26, 2006, Stewart co-workers became concerned when she did not call in the morning weather report as expected. After trying to reach her several times without any kind of success, a colleague was dispatched to her cabin at the Athabasca Lookout. And the scene that was discovered there remains shocking and baffling to this very day. It was clear that a struggle had occurred. There was a smear of blood on the stairs leading into the cabin. Inside the cabin was a state of disarray. On the stove, a pot of water was boiling. Missing from the cabin were several blankets, a pillow, and a gold lady's watch. Stephanie was nowhere to be found on the lookout grounds. Authorities were immediately contacted, and extensive search and rescue efforts were performed in the wilderness surrounding the Athabasca lookout with no results. Authorities have stated that they do not believe Stewart fell victim to an animal attack. Her deletion has been ruled as a homicide, and law enforcement seems sure that it was foul play. At this time, no further information about Stephanie Stewart's disappearance has emerged. What could have happened to her? Whatever it was, it happened quickly. That the water was still boiling on the stove when a coworker arrived to check on her. Scott and Amy Fandel. Scott, age 13, and Amy, age 8, were siblings living with their mother, Margaret, in Sterling, Alaska. On the evening of September the 4th, 1978, Scott, Amy, Margaret, and Margaret's sister, Kathy, who was visiting from out of town, went out to eat at a Sterling bar restaurant called Good Time Charlie's at around 10 p.m. Margaret and Kathy dropped the children off at home and returned to Good Time Charlie's to have some drinks. After returning home, the children visited their next-door neighbor, the Luptons, with whose children they frequently played. The last confirmed sighting of the siblings was them walking home to their cabin from the Lupton home at around 11:45 p.m. A passerby noticed lights on within the Fendel cabin. Next morning, September the 5th, Margaret and Kathy returned to the cabin between 2 to 3 a.m. to a mysterious scene. The house was dark, which was unusual, as the children were afraid of the dark. On the kitchen counter was an open can of tomatoes. On the stove was a pot of boiling water. Macaroni with tomatoes was a snack that Scott commonly ate before bed. Scott and Amy were nowhere to be found within the home. Despite the strange scene, perhaps chalking it up to childhood forgetfulness or perhaps excitement, Margaret and Kathy assured that Scott and Amy were spending the night next door at the Luptons, and both went to bed. Later that morning, Margaret awakened and left for work at around 8:30 a.m. Although she still hadn't seen Scott and Amy, she believed the children had followed their usual routines and had already left for school. At some point, Margaret attempted to call Amy at school, but was told that Amy hadn't arrived for school that day. However, Margaret's boss prevented Margaret from leaving work to investigate the absence further. At around noon, the kid's aunt Kathy woke. She too believed the children were at school, and as such was not alarmed to not find them at home. It wasn't until later that afternoon, after the school day had ended, that Margaret and Kathy became aware that anything was amiss. The Lupton children from next door visited the Fandel home, wondering why Scott and Amy hadn't attended school that day. Kathy, confused, called Margaret at work and notified her of the children's absence from school. Frantic Margaret immediately notified the police that the children were missing. Immediately after learning of the children's disappearance, Margaret tried to reach Amy's father, Roger, who had left about 9 months prior but wasn't able to. At the time, she did speak with some of Roger's relatives, who reported that he had no idea where the kids were, and soon after, Roger arrived in Alaska to assist in search efforts for Scott and Amy. While investigating the children's disappearance, police found several bullet casings outside the Fandel's cabin. However, police were unsure if the casings were related to the disappearances. Years later, Roger's former girlfriend from that time of the disappearing offered to reveal Scott and Amy's fate to Roger's uncle at a cost of $5,000. As far as I can tell, nothing came of this. Although Roger was considered a suspect for many years, he is no longer suspected to be involved by the local police. Yeah, definitely. This was the 70s after all, but the parents were pretty relaxed. The aunt and the mom neglected to, try to go find their kids and kind of assuming a whole bunch of stuff, That's, I don't know if that would have saved any time at all, but regardless, it's pretty sad stories. This is called David Glenn Lewis incident. Attorney and former Judge David Glenn Lewis, 39, of Amarillo, Texas, disappeared on Super Bowl Sunday, 1993, amidst very mysterious circumstances. Thursday, January 28th, Lewis left work early at around noon, bought gas using his credit card, and later taught a college course until 10 p.m. His wife and daughter left for a shopping trip to Dallas, Texas, to last until January 31st. They don't see him at home before they depart for Dallas due to scheduling conflicts. On Friday, January 29th, Mr. Davis was seen at Amarillo Airport by a friend who stated that he was luggageless and happened to be running towards the Southwest Airline Terminal. Additionally, at 10:30 p.m., a police officer noticed a red Ford Explorer, the same make, model, color of David's car, parked outside the Potter County Courthouse in downtown Amarillo. On Saturday, January 30th, a $5,000 deposit was made into the Lewis's joint bank account. David's red Ford Explorer was seen by a neighbor parked in the driveway of the Lewis's home. The red Explorer, seen the previous evening by the police officer, was no longer downtown at the court building, so somebody had moved it. January 30th also marked the last confirmed sighting of David Glenn Lewis, and although the exact circumstances of this sighting have not been made publicly available. Sunday the 31st was Super Bowl Sunday. David's wife and daughter returned home from their shopping trip to Dallas as planned, but what they found baffled them. They could find no sight of David himself in the house, and his red Ford Explorer was not there either. However, it appeared as if he had just recently left quite suddenly. In the fridge were freshly baked turkey sandwiches, freshly prepared turkey sandwiches. Additionally, the Lewis's VCR had recorded the Super Bowl game starting at 5:15 that day. Starting the VCR recording would have required somebody to be present in the home, as the Lewis's VCR did not have a programmable time function that could be set ahead of time. The VCR recording was never stopped after the game. However, he had continued recording until the tape ended. David's wife and daughter also found laundry in the dryer and his watch and wedding ring sitting on the kitchen counter. Unbeknownst to David's family, earlier that day, David's Ford Explorer had been again spotted parked outside of the Potter County Courthouse in Amarillo, Texas. The morning of January 31st, a sheriff deputy noted the car as well as a man resembling David across the street from the courthouse building, taking photos of the red Explorer. However, this information did not come to light until police began investigating David's disappearance. Despite the strange circumstances, David's wife assumed that he was simply working late and was not overly worried. However, the next day, Monday, February the 1st, David's wife became alarmed when she still hadn't heard from him, and he missed multiple work appointments. She reported David missing to the police. While investigating David's disappearance, police uncovered several odd clues. The same day, he was reported missing some 350 miles away from Amarillo. A Dallas cab driver had taken a fare resembling David from Dallas Hotel to a Dallas-Fort Worth airport. The driver reported the man appeared nervous and very agitated and fumbled to pay his fare from a wad of $100 bills. The next day, Tuesday, February the 2nd, police identified David's car parked outside of the Potter County Courthouse in Amarillo, Texas. His house and car keys were found under the floor mat of the vehicle. David's license, checkbook, and credit cards were also found in the car where normally David kept them. Police also discovered that David had purchased 2 plane tickets prior to his disappearance. The first ticket was for a flight from Dallas to Amarillo and was purchased on Super Bowl Sunday, January the 31st. The second ticket was purchased the following day on February the 1st for a flight from Los Angeles to Dallas. Despite these odd circumstances, David's case went cold for over 10 years until 2004, when a sharp-eyed and resourceful police investigator put some seemingly unrelated puzzle pieces together. In 2004, Washington State Police Detective Pat Ditter read a local newspaper series that profiled, in part, the unreliability of law enforcement databases in helping to identify John Does. Ditter zeroed in on one fatal hit-and-run from 1993. On February 1st, 1993, the same day that David had been reported missing in Texas, around 10:30 p.m., motorists on Route 24 in Yakima County, Washington State, noticed a person on the road. By the time the motorist had turned around to warn oncoming drivers, the man had been struck dead by a hit and run. Some reports noted a Chevy Camaro speeding away from the accident scene. The driver had never been identified, and an autopsy performed on John Doe revealed that he was not intoxicated at the time of his death. Ditter realized the description of John Doe matched those in the missing persons profile for David Glenn Lewis. Despite the 1,500-mile difference in locations, Ditter thought that John Doe could be a good match with David's missing persons profile. This prompted a DNA inquiry, which revealed that John Doe, killed on February 1st by a hit-and-run motorist in Yakima County, Washington, was indeed David Glenn Lewis, reported missing by his wife the same day in Amarillo, Texas. The DNA match answered only one part of the mystery of David's disappearance. How and why did David wind up in Yakima County, Washington from Amarillo, Texas? And who was the driver of the fatal hit-and-run that killed David? Those questions remain to be answered to this day. That's super strange. I think the thing that struck me about this particular case is that they found his wedding ring behind. So maybe that was, his wife and daughter being out of town, Super Bowl weekend, perfect excuse for a guy to stay home behind, kind of fake it, record the game, and then just split with maybe a new lady friend. They probably had some kind of altercation. Lady could have been a little bit nutty, and that ensued in his hit and run. I don't know. Could have been something completely different, but that's what kind of the things that hit me in regards to this possible disappearance. I could have it totally backwards, but sad story nonetheless. Let's see here. Hope everybody's attending I hope you guys are doing well. In our final case of the missing persons, it's called a Brenda Heist case. Final case I'll be discussing has a different outcome from the previous three cases. In 2002, Pennsylvania woman Brenda Heist went missing suddenly one day after dropping her 9 and 11-year-old children off at school. Heist had been experiencing multiple life stressors such as divorce, and had recently been turned down for financial housing assistance. The day she disappeared, loved ones discovered a turkey defrosting on the kitchen counter for dinner that night, and a load of laundry halfway done. Friends and family were very insistent that Brenda would never have left her kids voluntarily. That and the abruptness of her disappearance indicated that she must have been a victim of foul play at the hands of her ex-husband or another predator. It appeared to everyone that Mrs. Heist had disappeared without a trace. Her car was found in a neighboring county, but no further leads emerged. Suspicion then fell to Brenda's husband, Mr. Lee Heist, who was eventually cleared by law enforcement. In the meantime, Lee and the children struggled financially and even lost their home. He raised their now adult children, although he continued to live under a cloud of suspicion with the community. Lee and Brenda declared legally dead. Lee had Brenda declared legally dead in 2010 and has since remarried. Shockingly, in 2013, Mrs. Heist reappeared. She turned herself into the sheriff's department in Key Largo, Florida, and informed them that she was a missing person. As it turned out, on the day of her disappearance in 2002, Heist had stopped at a local park after dropping her kids off at school. She struck up a conversation with several people at the park who had noticed that she was sobbing, and who then invited her to join them as they hitchhiked around the country. On a whim, Heist had decided to join them. Since then, she had been living a vagrant lifestyle, panhandling, hitchhiking, and living under bridges in intense cities, and had recently been arrested under a false name. Heist's confession brought an end to her missing persons case, which had gone cold in the ensuing years. Exploring missing persons cases, we often think that the best possible outcome is for the missing individual to be found alive, having left on their own volition as opposed to under foul play conditions. Yet, despite this outcome, in Brenda's case, her story doesn't exactly have a happy ending. Brenda's relationship with her children, now adults, is very strained. Lee Heist is angry at his ex-wife for financial and emotional turmoil she caused in his and their children's life. Brenda feels a great deal of shame and remorse for her actions, according to a Pennsylvania detective who interviewed her after her reappearance, but she has a long way to go to make things right. In addition to the immense personal and emotional consequences, it is not inconsequential fact that she is considered legally deceased. Wow. All right. So here we are, guys. Let's go back to. So those are pretty strange disappearance cases. I mean, not not so much obviously the last one, the lady just, but it is kind of odd that all of a sudden you would just go from like a from like a normal mom into somebody who just completely flips into a different lifestyle. You know, let's see here. We have couple of more tales before. This is called the Mary Abby Flynn case. On February 2nd, 2020, retired nurse Mary Abby Flynn Mr. Horsehair, how are you doing, sir?
How you doing? Can you hear me well?
I can always hear you well. You have good sound. The visual's not too clear.
Oh, the vision would be due to the cheap webcam, I'd say.
That's okay. I just care about the voice, and your voice is spot on, sir.
Thank you. I worked hard fiddling with a few things here to get it just crystal clear, but do the best I can do.
No, sounds wonderful.
I would just like to cite you're on the subject of vanishing people.
Yes, sir.
Okay, a little closer to where I am, there were a string of disappearances during the 90s of young women around in the southeast of Ireland. Like, I was just Googling it up, and it has even a site called irelandsvanishingtriangle.com.
What is that again? How do you spell that?
irelandsvanishingtriangle.com. You may look it up yourself. It's an interesting subject I've always thought about, because there was one woman that had a lot of missing posters like scattered around town when I was a kid, and it's always kind of spooked me since. A woman named I'll first before mentioning names that, well, I'm in a small locale, and this is just one of those stories that I think might be like worth mentioning just a little bit on the subject, just
and
create awareness.
It's public knowledge. You're not doxing anybody. It's public knowledge. Here, I put that in for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So like one of them would be Jojo Dullard. Like, I remember her on the missing list.
Jojo Dullard, number 3 right here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it always kind of spooked me that there could be someone at large behind all these, and I might just get this on all the way to the west coast of America just to see if there would be any bit of topical discussion. There already is, but I think it's worth kind of mentioning again as much as possible, because you never know who's listening in who might know a little bit.
Yeah. So it seems like whoever was active was active for a period of roughly 5 years, from 1993 to 1998. I was completely. One second here. There's a lot more. There's 7 on the map, but I'm looking at an article here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 people, and I think they're all female, right?
Yeah.
So what is your
continue?
What is your take on all this?
Well, I've always kind of said, like, throughout these our talks here, that always kind of come up with 1+1 = 3 or whatnot. Though I prefer to tread lightly on this because this can be sensitive and like subjects, common knowledge, public domain, of course. But I kind of wish just create a little bit of awareness for it because, well, they're all still missing.
Yeah. There's one that I read right now that I'm going to read it out loud. It's very small. So this is Priscilla Clark, 25. She's not on the map itself, but Priscilla Clark, 25, disappeared in May 3rd, 1988. So this precedes our map there, from Enniskerry County, Wicklow, after going horseback riding with her employee, a 39-year-old Linda Kavanaugh, for whom she worked as a live-in nanny. Linda's body was recovered 2 days later from the River Dargle. The horses were discovered in the vicinity, damped and lost. Priscilla's body was never discovered, assuming that she passed, that is. 2 people were seen riding horses onto Charleville Estate on the day that Priscilla vanished. One was recognized as Kavanaugh. The other person was not identified. However, Linda called her husband to let her know that she and Priscilla were going riding. At the time, it was believed that the woman encountered difficulty while riding through a swollen river. However, Priscilla's family believed that foul play should have been further considered. Yeah, that's very odd. Especially that they're all females, you know?
Yeah, it's one I kind of find a little bit disturbing about that. There could be like so much speculation going through this, and it is one of those things that creeps me out every now and again, especially when I walk the streets at night, thinking that there could be some person behind all this or people, and they're still just laughing away, chuckling away to themselves, sitting quietly at the front of a pub somewhere, and no one knows.
Yeah.
Except them. That is.
Yeah. Now, do you remember when this was actually happening?
Well, I was a kid at the time. I just remember just passing by on the school bus and just seeing the missing posters. And they were scattered. Like, this was way before the internet was widespread.
Oh, sure,
way before
sure.
Facebook and whatnot.
What was it about the particular? You said that there was a particular poster that made an impact on you. That you said you found it creepy.
Well, it was. I didn't think of much. Like, it was at the time. I was a kid then, and it's just that, like, as years go by, I just think it's just something that deserves to be created, a little bit of revival every now and again. I've heard a few kind of stories about some people trying to do write-ups about it. Like, I just looked up on that, just Googled it again, found that site, and as you were mentioning, Vanishing People.
Yeah.
And I've heard of stories from the shadows about people trying to write up about it and then getting strangers knocking on the door telling them to hush hush, which I do find creepy. Now, these sources were just word on the street.
Sure.
So it does kind of creep me out. And the idea that some people trying to dig these stories up, that trying to investigate, and then some people from the shadows and whatnot, like just telling them, be quiet, and that's a disturbing kind of bit of hearsay.
Sure.
I was hearing about.
I found this a little bit more. It's a poster that's a little bit more detailed in regards to 10 particular women within the triangle itself. That's pretty odd in it itself that it happened in a triangle, if you will. I did notice, I just did a little bit of research because you brought this to my attention, that actually Sky Television made a movie about it. It's called 6 Silent Killings, Ireland Vanishing Triangle. And there's also the Vanishing Triangle. I think it's a series. So if you guys get interested in it, go ahead and look for these. I don't know if we have them. Maybe I would say probably Amazon Prime in the States, but it will be an interesting kind of thing to delve into.
Well, I do find you're referring to Sky News or Sky TV channel. That would be
Yeah,
British Broadcasting, owned by you know who, Rupert Murdoch,
yeah, of
and
course.
all that. Now, there's a very different slant of Irish media versus British media. Now, British media, UK media has a little bit more ballsy when it goes into just analyzing what's going on over here. A little bit less informed, but they have a little less kind of collateral to worry about. Though not always on the ball, but they do like their own scoops to see what's going on over here versus our own media, which is a bit more, well, conservative, I would say, the least. It's a bit more, whitewashed. I wonder that would be that a good word, but there would be certain differences in both our medias from each side of the Irish Sea.
Sure.
Though I do kind of wish not to go on too much of a rant about Irish versus English media, but there are stark differences, especially in the history lessons that we both get.
Sure, but maybe they could stay a little bit more on point, or not as polarizing when it comes to a story of that kind of had been
Oh,
it's recently and has been documented. You know.
yeah, there is now, like as you mentioned, like in this new podcast, like The Vanishing People. I think, it's something worthy just to get a little spread over on one side of the planet. Who knows? Maybe some guy over there watching this, or some guy around the world might spark a little bit of interest, do a bit of
Sure.
digging.
No, I understand what
You
you're
never
saying.
know.
You never know.
You know,
And look, there's one that either. I mean, there's a recent one here that dates from 2011. It's not too long ago. Um, yeah, it's very.
2011.
Yeah, there's a case here, number 10. Ezra Umrium, 38, vanished February 23rd, 2011, from Clongdalk in Dublin. Not seen
Clondalk.
since not seen since shopping trip. Car found on promenade in Bray.
Yeah. Shocking in itself, but like I'm just digging up like the one, like there's just two there that I've clearly remember on the missing persons posters as a kid, and it, like, they are not far from like my locale, and it is like, now Jojo there went missing somewhere in Dublin or something,
Oh, she
but
was
she's
pretty
not
young.
far,
Very
very
young.
young. And I have heard from the odd person in the city there that, like, now Kilkenny is it says itself as a city, but it's really just a town,
Hmm.
by technically, but it is quite a village in its own sense. Does have a history of witch burnings and serial killers, if you don't mind me going on about, but
No, no, no. I wanted to
no,
I wanted to touch up a little bit that I saw here. It says that they all share some common characteristics. For example, the women were all
no.
young, ranging from their late teen to 40 years of age. They disappear inexplicably and suddenly, had no substantial clues or evidence of their fate had ever been found. Um, they all disappeared on certain areas, which became known as the Vanishing Triangle. Um, and today, due to similarity of the cases, popular hypothesis that they may be the result of a serial hunter, if you will.
Hmm.
Yeah, goodness.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing this up, and my God, David, you are quick on the Google searches, like, unbelievably. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I know. I mean, I've been doing computer stuff for a long time, but I got a quick trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what time is it over there in good old Ireland right now?
It's nearly hitting 5 in the morning here.
Goodness,
Like,
you are.
I woke up from a terrible nightmare like earlier. Like, I had about 2 hours sleep,
Mm.
So I was just kind of sitting around and just thinking, yeah, just maybe wait for your show to open. I'll get a bit of kip later.
I appreciate it. So I saw you the other day. I saw you live on your channel. You do a lot of singing, huh?
I do. I originally wanted to become a proper rock star, though I'm a bit too old and a bit on the hair loss area to
It's
actually
okay.
get there. Like a few years ago, say about 7 years ago, I decided to try a podcast singing after watching Joe Rogan's show years ago. Don't
Sure.
really follow Joe Rogan anymore for I don't know, old reasons, but I still don't. I wound up with a lot of recording gear, practicing audio engineering just on my own time. And like after watching a few podcasts, I realized I had all the kit already. So I just started recording myself. And lo and behold, 7 years later, still plugging away at it. And it like this is pretty much it. Like strangely enough that yeah, like first it was Joe Rogan listening to years ago, and then it was, well, Art Bell, a friend, showed me on, and I've listened to him for donkey's years
Yeah.
since then. And yeah, it's kind of like a hobby I plug away on these days.
Well, good man. You have a great voice, by the way. You have a nice deep bass, so that tends to sometimes soothe a lot of people and grab you and grab you into you want to keep listening. That's a kind of voice that becomes addicting. You want to, you know.
Well, thank you, and I'll say to yourself, you got a very soft one yourself, so that's
I appreciate
okay.
you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. All right, my friend. So I'm gonna sign. I'm almost close at 9 here in
Nice
the
one.
Pacific.
I'll catch you later at some point. I think I've highlighted as much as I can say at the moment, but thanks
Uh,
for listening.
no, and I
Yeah,
really listen. I appreciate you. The door's always open for you, and I appreciate you coming in. And
yeah.
I appreciate you with the insights about that awesome case. I'm probably going to be watching some videos or trying to see what that's all about. But Horsehair, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All the best.
Okay, my
I'll
friend.
catch
Take
you
care.
later.
All right, take care, man. That was a good friend, Horsehair, live from undisclosed location in Ireland. Must be a beautiful place to visit, huh? I would love to go there one day. I always appreciate those calls that just kind of come in, and this is the kind of show that I want to have. We stop everything and we tend to the callers, which is it's kind of what I want to do. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I enjoyed it. Ouija boards, note to self and note to you guys: don't mess with them. Don't mess with those things. Those are gateways that you don't want to open. The other thing is disappearances, interesting things. You know, hopefully you guys never encounter either one of those. But yeah, I hope you guys stay safe. I might have a guest tomorrow. I've been having a couple of guests, just trying to orchestrate time in regards to getting them on the air. One of them owns a paranormal store, if you will, that they sell a lot of paranormal supplies to pick up things, see things, engage in things. I have another potential speaker that has a podcast for a long time, and one of them that has another podcast, and they're both one of them's very successful. On my revise also, I'm thinking about maybe inviting Michael Markham again, our friendly time traveler. I think I'm going to bring him back. I'm going to kind of hype up so we can get a lot more people here, but I'm definitely thinking about asking Mike to come in and just kind of have a nice talk, see what's going on with him. And I keep in touch with him very frequently. So I would like to, I'm going to extend him an invitation, maybe have him this week or next week. We'll see what happens. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us here at Strange Days live portion. Go ahead and just, best thing you can do is promote the show to people that are like-minded, that probably enjoy it, so we can grow our fan base and I do all that I can in my part in regards to tinkering with the placement of the YouTube algorithms, trying to get more listenings in, trying to get more video plays, try to get more exposure. And we're out there. We've casted a broad net. So go ahead and follow our Strange Days Paranormal. And here on Facebook, if you want to friend me, it's basically my account, but I made it in a way that it's not really a group, a Facebook group. It's more of a Facebook account. So you guys have direct access to me. If you want to come on the air as a co-host on one day, and if you pick a topic, let's do it. I invite anybody to be my co-host. Pick a topic and we'll discuss it. Don't get nervous. It's very easy to do. You don't have to be live as far as like your face on the show. We can always have our little screen and just kind of talk behind the scenes like this. Okay. Yeah. So thanks, Joe. Joe Breezy. He has a show as well. I think maybe they air about the same time that I do. My show, it's up to I'm just doing an hour. I'm not doing any more than that. And Joe's shows go up a little bit longer than that. Joe and Tim, you remember the boys, they have their own thing going on, and you can find them under Tim Zoller. Tim, Tim, and then Zoller is spelled Zahler. He has his own channel under that name, and these boys will go on for hours talking about cool stuff. And well, you got to experience the Tim and Breezy here on Strange Days. With that being said, hey, Michaela, you guys are a little late. You guys come in at 9. And JD is here. Well, re-listen to the show. It was a fun show. Hope you guys had fun. Those are kind of stuck throughout. Let's see. Joe Breezy writes, you ever want me on? I'm down. I'm not on Tim's show anymore. Wow. Okay, breaking news. Not on Tim's show anymore. Okay, but no hate, just doing my thing. Yeah, I know. Eventually, that's what happens, man. You know, we all start together. Kind of started at the same time. I started doing this thing in October of last year, the last days of October, and then I had Tim about a week later, join me. We were all rookies, and then Breezy came in, and we were all rookies together. And then, you know, like a family, it's just everybody starts doing their own thing. So Tim has his show, and Joe Breezy has his show. I would love to have you. We'll plan something out. Hit me up. You have my number. Let's work something out so we can come in. Oh no, I know, dude. The love's always there for you guys. You know, it's like siblings, man. Some siblings become, you know, they do their own thing. One becomes a doctor, one becomes a mechanic, and the other guy becomes a politician and sets the laws for everybody to follow. So. Yeah, I would love to have you on the show. Hit me up on the phone, and then we'll get something going on. I love your knowledge, man. You're super, super knowledgeable, and I think that adds a lot to all the shows. This is news, Joe. Yeah, I know. It is news. JD, same here. I feel the same way. So, yeah, we'll talk afterwards. Hit me up. We'll plan something out. I would love to have you on the show. What else? So yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight, guys. Thank you for being here. For those of you that came in a little bit later, go ahead and listen to the show. You know, I'm on podcasts. You guys already know the drill. I'm on YouTube because that helps the numbers go up a little bit, and they have done quite well, to be honest with you. The shows are getting an average of like 250 to 300 listens. Usually, you know, the strong point is not the live aspect of it, but it's the re-listening is what we're getting. I'm hitting a lot of numbers, and I'm very happy. So the subscribers have kind of maintained at a stable 3.6k, which is awesome. And yeah, so I'm stoked. I'm very happy with the point. I'm hustling behind the scenes, man. I'm always playing around, trying to learn more tricks of the trade and try to get a cast even broader net to eventually do what I want to do, which is have a call-in show and an interview show. And then once in a while we can pick a topic and do topical stuff. But we are all a team, so your input and your help helps me. If you have any ideas for future shows, or if you want any topics discussed, go ahead and write them. I read all the comments. Okay. All right, guys. Well, God bless you. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. This is Doc signing off from Strange Days Live.